Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Q&A Cafe for Business One. Today, we're doing Item Master and Inventory Primer for Business One, obviously, with Alex Waddell. He'll be presenting for this, and we'll also be taking questions. I will be recording this session, so please leave yourself on mute so we can't hear any of your background noise. And then once this presentation portion is done, then we'll take questions through either the questions box or the chat box. They'll be there for you, and I'll be facilitating them. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Alex, and I'll mute myself as well.
Great, thanks, Kayla. So welcome everybody. This session is going to be on the sort of a primer on the item master and how it works. So we'll go over some of the basic features, see how far we can kind of get in the time that we have. Just so you're aware, I was having some audio issues earlier, so I'll try and keep an eye if Kayla raises her hand here and lets me know if audio cuts out. If you do have any questions along the way, feel free to type them in as you think of them into the question panel, and we'll be sure to answer all of those questions before we end the session. So where we're going to focus on today is the item master data. What are the elements in here? We're going to focus primarily on the header, but we'll talk about some of the other advanced features as well. So the purpose of the item master table is for you to set up something as simple as just an ability to track a cost and drive something to a GL account, either a purchasable item or a saleable item, or potentially something as sophisticated as a inventory item where you want to manage quantities and costing methods, or an item that you want to manufacture and start putting in data around its planning and production. So there's a lot going on, and so we're going to focus on some of the elements that are really important that fundamentally change the way the system behaves, just based on whether or not you check certain boxes. So I'm in the find mode now. If I were to do a search in here, I would bring up a list of all the items in my little demo environment. And should this item be an inventory item, you can see here that you have stock available. In the case where it's a non-inventory item, like down here, it'll say quantity 0. So as mentioned, you may create items that are inventory managed or non-inventory managed. And it's really important to know the difference because that's going to impact the way the system behaves, as I'll show you shortly. Just a quick note, if you are used to using the pop-up window to search for items, you have the ability to click on your form settings here, and you have access to a lot of the data inside the inventory table. So if there is other information that you would like to be able to see, so for example, if this is whether or not it's a purchase item or a sales item, that's something we could easily add to this list. So I can turn that on. And if I hit the update button, then I will have to cancel the current query that I've invoked and then just hit the find button again. And so now I'll get that extra column, whether or not it's a purchase item. So this is a pretty robust way that you can actually query data directly out of your item master table, just by adding it to the form settings without having to know how to go write any type of query at all. So keep that in mind. So let's look at creating a brand new item in the system, and we'll talk about some of the elements of creating an item. So first of all, the item number. This is the one, one of a few fields that cannot be changed depending on whether or not a transaction has ever been processed. So an item number, because it is the primary key that references all the other tables in the system where this item has ever been sold or purchased, the moment you make a transaction, you'll never be able to change that. And therefore, other fields like the description, if that's robust, you can go back and change a description, but you can't change the item number. So I've had many conversations over the years on how to number items, and this gets to be a little bit of a philosophical debate, whether you want to use intelligent numbering or dumb numbering or some combination is really specific to your business. But I would say overall, your best practice is to put as little intelligence into the item number as possible, because if you do update your item master list, like I said, it's easy to update the descriptions. So if the purpose of your items change or your descriptions change in the future, and you've put a bunch of intelligence into the code, you're stuck with that code forever. Whereas if it's a dumb number, it's just kind of meaningless. Now, because you can always invoke the description whenever you're doing a search or running a report or filling out a purchase order or a sales order, it doesn't really matter whether or not the inventory item number is meaningful or not. So whether people learn the number or learn the description, they will be able to search on either field. So in this particular environment, you can see that this item numbering is manual. That's just simply because this demo environment, they were sort of lazy in the setup. I would say that many people would decide to have some sort of a numbering sequence, and they would maybe automatically, especially if you are going to use a non-intelligent number, then you could number it that way. Where do you access those settings? So if you are an administrator, you can go into system initialization and you can go into document numbering. And in this panel, you will see all the various documents where you can set essentially the first number. So what the current number is on that document. So you can see all of these were set at number 1. And then the items that are gray imply that there is a many-to-one relationship, that there's some intelligence. So for those ones, you'll have to double click on the row to get into the panel to actually do your item numbering. So if you did want to add some intelligence into your item numbering, you could do that here. And you could create potentially a prefix or a suffix on your item code that numbered. So you could have, so for example, service items or sales items could start with, SAL or something like that, and then start going up from 001 all the way up to 999. However you want to create that intelligence or those sequences is up to you. So for our little test today, we'll just stick with the manual item numbering. So manual item numbering, you do run the risk that people are going to not be consistent, and then you end up with kind of a mess in your inventory item table, like we have here, where there's all sorts of different numbers and people have not been consistent on how they've numbered things. We'll take advantage of that inconsistency today. So we'll just create our item. So for our Q&A cafe, we'll create Q&A item number 1, and we will just create a sales inventory item. So this is something we want to sell in our system. And is it something that we want to manage as inventory? This checkbox is very critical then. If you turn this checkbox off or on, you are really changing the way the behavior of the item master works. If it's turned on, it's expecting that you are going to have quantities in inventory. It's something that you are going to manage costing method for. Warehouses, where the item is located, you're going to do stock counts and things like that. So if this is something that's truly inventory, that checkbox will be turned on. If it's something we sell, we obviously want that turned on. It could possibly be something we don't purchase. So it could be something you manufacture, I guess. That might be a bit of an uncommon scenario, but the way that works, so I'm just going to add this record. There isn't a lot of information required to just add an item master. So it is easy to maybe accidentally add items and have not filled out a lot of the fields, which could alter the behavior of the item. So do keep that in mind. So what does that mean to us that I've created the item in that manner? If I go to do an AP invoice, for example, and I want to buy this item, so I'm going to go to my item number field and I'm going to put in my QA to start searching, and you can see that nothing comes up. So that is because it won't even be visible in this pop-up list unless the sales item checkbox has been activated. So that is a good way to sort of manage your items, to keep separate items that are saleable only versus items that are purchasable only, as opposed to both. Now, on the other hand, if I do want to try and sell this item, I can go create an AR invoice. We'll just choose our first customer that comes up, and let's see if this item comes up. I would expect it would. So there's our recently created sales inventory item. Let's try and sell this for $100. And when we hit add, we are going to get a red bar because quantity falls into a negative inventory. So there is a system setting that governs that. We don't recommend you manage negative inventory, but if you have a good business reason for that, you could potentially override this so that you could have negative inventory. But because we did select this item, just drill down on it here. So I'm going to use the drill down arrow in the document to go back to our item. We can see here that because it's managed as inventory, we have to have some in stock. So let me just cut a little corner here. I'm going to go to my item master inventory transactions, and I'm just going to receive something into inventory. So this is not the same as buying an item. This is just essentially saying I've discovered it and I want to put some on my shelf. This could be a manufacturing process that you've run, so maybe that's how you ended up with inventory that you don't sell. So if I add something to stock, I should now have a quantity available. If I go in to look at this item now, we will go down to our inventory data tab, and we now start seeing that we have some item in stock. So this is where we're managing quantities. So what else is important to managing inventory is the costing method. So this system is set to default to moving average. You could do a standard costing method, you could do a FIFO method, or you could make this changeable each time you create the item, and you could do a combination of those inside your inventory system. So right now we have a moving average of $50, meaning there's only one item purchased. If I were to buy another item for, let's say, $60 and then turn around and sell one, it would assume the moving average cost is $55, and that's what it would consume out of inventory. So manages moving average very well. If you are doing a FIFO costing, then you do have to do a drill down to get to the FIFO layers because it's obviously not easy to show FIFO costs on a flat level like this by warehouse. But it does manage FIFO very well, and that is certainly an acceptable way to manage your inventory too. So let's talk a little bit about what else is going on with our inventory items. Let's create another item. We'll call this one QA002, and let's just call this actually let's just do this as a purchase. Office supplies. So we're going to create something that's non-inventory, but it is something that we want to purchase, and we want to be able to measure and track what it is that we're doing. So rather than creating GL type purchase orders in the system that drive to office supplies, you could instead create inventory, I guess you would call them non-item master datas, so they're non-inventory item datas, but it'll allow us to track the purchases that we've made against these items, and that can be useful for a spend analysis. Now, this is a pretty broad category, purchase office supplies, so however you want to set this up is really a business decision. Do you want to set this up to be meaningful to a vendor if you're going to send a purchase order to them, or do you want to set this up at a level that is meaningful for you to understand, more detailed cost? So how many items you create in the system is really a business decision there when you're creating these sort of non-inventory expense items. How does this item get coded? I'm not going to get too much into the GL determinations. This particular item is being determined by the item group. So I do happen to have an item group for office supplies. I'm going to set it to that. So what that means to us is the GL determinations are going to be determined by a GL determination matrix that's set up behind the scenes. In this particular case, we're using advanced rules. You do have an option of using the basic rules where you would potentially set up the GL account right inside the item itself. For example, at each intersection of warehouse and item, you could still drive it by the groups, or you could do the advanced. On June 11th, we will be doing a GL determinations Q&A, so you would have an opportunity then if you want to attend that, and we can get a little bit more into how to link a specific GL determination to items and the various methods that you can use. So for now, I'm just going to set up this basic information. I believe this is enough that this item is usable. So once again, that was a purchase item, it's non-inventory. So I'm going to just create a purchasing document. If I were to create a sales document, I would not be able to see that item because of the way that I created it. I just close a couple of these panels here so it's a little less clutter. All right, so let's buy some office supplies from Acme. And we're going to do QA purchase office supplies. And so here comes our description from our item. Now, a little trick, and this has more to do with the sales documents than it does with the items itself, but you do have the ability to override descriptions. So if I did want to put in a description here, like copy toner, and I hit the tab button, what the system is going to do is it's going to assume that maybe I'm trying to search for a different item based on the description. And that's why it's invoking this pop-up list. And it's essentially saying, I can't find that item in the list. So it kind of feels like we're caught in a dead end here. So the little trick for that is you hold on to the control key on your keyboard and you hit the tab button, and that forces you out of the field, but it does leave the overwritten description in there. So now I have a more meaningful description. If I did want to just set up one generic item, but I want to be able to send a purchase order, for example, to my supplier and have it be meaningful. So I'm going to order 5 quantities of this. So the system lets me manage quantities for sale and stuff, although it's never going to manage inventory on the balance sheet because of the way that I've set up this item. And then let's do one more row, and I'm going to do another little shortcut key. So I'm going to use the control up arrow to copy the row above. So once again, it brings in the generic description. I'm going to overwrite this and say, copy paper, and control tab to get out of that key. And so let's buy 12 of those at $8.50. And so now I've created, set up an invoice in the system. I'm going to add it. And let's see if this posts. If we go in and have a look at this invoice, we can see that it was successfully created in the system. If I go to the accounting tab and we look at the journal remark, we can now see that the system has booked $227 to office supplies. And that's based on that GL determination that was created through the item group that I associated it. So what does that mean? That means it's really important that however you are doing your GL determinations, that they are connected properly. So if you are doing GL determinations for groups and there's a very clear description on your groups to the types of items, then maybe it's a low risk for those items to be set up. But this is where we run into some challenges where oftentimes it's sort of operational people that want to manage the parts list, the inventory item list, and yet you need some accounting oversight, because if you have somebody that does link something incorrectly, it could be quite some time before somebody realizes that things are being coded, to the wrong GL account, or being treated as inventory when it shouldn't be, or vice versa. So in the end, whoever's going to maintain your item master probably needs to be comfortable with really understanding how all the accounting linkage works, or you would want to have a finance person maybe review all the newly set up items in the system. So we've created an item, we called it something very generic, office supplies. We created that, with the thinking that that is going to give us some maybe spend analysis. But things to keep in mind, so this is something else to maybe just consider when you're deciding what sort of items do I want to create. Do I want to create a generic item called office supplies? Do I want to create photocopy paper? Do I want to create toner? Do I want to create staplers and whatever else that it needs? When I am doing some sort of a spend analysis, so if we look at this report here, we can go to our items. Let's just look at things bought today. So yeah, that one's good. So you can see here, there's our QA002, so purchase office supplies. If I drill down on this to get into some more detail, it does get me into the row level detail, but what it does not bring over is the description that I overwrote on that AP invoice. So that does not inherently promote, because this particular report is looking up the item description from the item table, and that item is truly called purchase office supplies. Now that doesn't mean you can't get to that description, because you could write a custom query on the AP invoice table, and in that table alone is where the overwritten stored name of photocopy paper versus toner is stored. So keep all of those things in mind. You'll want to do some testing and playing this. If you're thinking of setting up spend items for deeper analysis, the recommendation is probably to set that level at the item master level. So create items in a meaningful way. Maybe you don't need to create different items for all the different types of photocopy paper, because that's something you could overwrite when you send the purchase order to your supplier, and that's not something you would care to ever analyze. So keep those things in mind. Let's talk a little bit else quickly on what else is going on with your item table. So the other thing at the header level, you do have this ability to have a foreign name. So if you are in a multilingual environment, English, French, or something like that, you could store the second language name in there. Your item group is really not that relevant anymore. The default items, item, labor, travel, I would say that almost all the reporting analysis is really based on the groups. So this field is probably less important, but your item groups, especially if you're linking GL detail to them, you're definitely going to want, you're going to have to create a correlation there. But you will see that in a lot of the reports that you run. So let's go back to this purchase analysis. Anytime you're running reports, you have the ability to do grouping or searching based on the groups. So groups is very prominent in all the reports. So it is a very logical, intelligent way to group your items, even if that's not driving your GL determinations. Unit of measures. So unit of measure groups, well, unit of measures allows you, when you are managing inventory, to specify, is this something that you buy in a particular unit of measure, the eaches, the dozens, the gallons. If you do need the system to do conversions for you, then you do have the ability to create unit of measure groups. We won't get into that today, but a unit of measurement group is a table behind the scene that allows you to tell the system that if you sell this in, let's say, gallons versus liters, where does it go to find the math to do that conversion, either on purchase or sale of the item. You can have an unlimited number of price lists. You can access those price lists either through the price list maintenance screen. That screen is probably a little bit easier, because there you would invoke one of these price lists and then you would see all of the items. Conversely, you can open up your item master and you can get to each individual price list one at a time. So whichever one I'm showing on the screen, over here is where I would enter or inquire on the price. What else is important to your item? So whether or not it's inactive, if you do want to disable an item. So you'll see that now that we've transacted against this item, as I mentioned, we can never change the item code, but we can change the item name. If you don't want this item to appear anymore in lists for it to be seen, but you may still have a reporting history on it, you can decide to make an item inactive. Or you could potentially create a more advanced query where you're going to make it inactive between a certain date range, if there's a reason for that. So on our purchasing tab, here's where you have preferred vendors. This is very useful if you're running any type of material resource planning. The system will help you automatically generate POs. So if you're using any of the automation in generation of POs, there's a few different ways to do that. Then you would need to populate the preferred vendor so that the system knows which vendor it should try and create a PO against. So when we talked about the intelligence around your item number, there are a few different ways to track your supplier's item numbers. A very simple way is just inside the manufacturer's catalog number. There is a way that's a bit more advanced where you can create specific part numbers for different vendors. So that's a feature as well. Because you have both of these options, it's really not necessary to use your supplier's number up here. And I probably advise against it unless you really do all of your procurement just from a small body of suppliers. The reason being is if you are creating parts in here for part source and you're using the part source number as your item number, that could be problematic should you ever go to buy that part from someone else. I would say that the packaging, the weights, things like that, I mean, this is really more for advanced supply chain management. So you do have that ability to start specifying information about the item, the size of it, what sort of quantities it's typically shipped in, and this will impact some of the supply chain features. As well as what sort of taxation happens on this item. This is useful in the US because of use tax and things like that. So that'll drive the tax engine. And then you've got those same fields essentially repeated on the sales data. So you could have a different sales metrics than you do purchasing. We've already looked a little bit at the inventory data. So this is where we're setting that a method for doing the GL determinations. What is the method going to be? Is it going to be based on the item itself, the warehouse, or the group? If you are using advanced GL determinations like we are in this environment, it will be the advanced GL determinations that'll determine the GL account. I mentioned that your valuation could be different per item, so those are your valuation options. And then this grid down here, so because this is our office supply number, this is kind of meaningless for us here, but if we were looking at that sales item, we could go in here to just do a quick point in time inquiry. What is the current stock we have on hand? You can also see committed based on sales orders you have in the system, potential incoming inventory on purchase orders to give you an idea of what's truly logistically available in your system. You can set up minimum and maximum items. This comes into play once again when you're doing material resource planning. If you do have a minimum inventory and your quantities have fallen below that minimum inventory, the system's going to suggest you reorder based on your MRP runs. So that segues well into the other planning data. So all of this planning data, once again, gets into MRP. Potentially in the future, we'll do an MRP session. We do have some documents posted to our portal that you could review if you're interested, or let us know if you're interested in seeing more about the material resource planning, and we'll get into what you can do in here as far as setting up lead times for items and intervals and things like that. I would say the same thing applies for production accounting. So if this is an item that you are manufacturing, you can set up some of that information here, whether it's related to a phantom bomb, whether you want to manually or backflush the item when you manufacture it. And then the properties tab, this is the same tab that's available inside the business partners. You have the ability to rename these properties. Your properties are in the system admin's setting, so you can go in and decide what these properties are called. And these properties can be anything you want. It could be, a property could be renamed something like only available from China. So whatever it is, and then when you check that checkbox, now that becomes a data set, which is very valuable for reporting. So when we go back to look at a purchase analysis or any kind of reporting, properties is something that is always available for you to invoke. So if you have renamed one of your properties to be only available from China, I check this box, I will now only get those items on the list. So very similar to the groups, whereas the group can only have a one-to-one relationship, so an item can only belong to one group. A property, an item could belong to many properties, meaning you could rename your properties to be working very independent of each other and turn off and on multiple properties on an item. And then in addition, we have the remarks tab. So you have the ability here to put in a great big long description. So if you do want to paste in some sort of data sheet on this item or safety specs or things like that, you can do that. This is an enormous text panel. You also have a photo link if you want to upload an image on the item. And then finally, attachments. So this works the same way as attachment tab does all through the system on various screens. If you want to upload a specific document to this item, you can do that as well. We'll be doing a session later on in July, I believe, on user-defined fields. So we'll be talking about how you can create user-defined fields to even further enhance your system. But in the item master, that's another very common place where we see clients that want to create enhanced information on an item that is not in here. And so there's no limit to the number of user-defined fields that you could create and set at each and every item. So that's quite a bit of information, but I just wanted to give you, I mean, essentially that primer. We haven't gotten too deep in things like the MRP or the production accounting. What I really wanted you to come away with in this session is to really understand the importance of these checkboxes. I would say that single understanding alone is where we have clients that run into problems the most, where we have clients that think they've created an inventory item and they haven't. And once you've created a bunch of transactions that have, just instantly been expensed in the system and they should have recorded your balance sheet, it's a little bit difficult to now go and kind of unwind all that. It can be done, but it takes some complexity. So definitely worth training your staff well on how to set up the item master. It's definitely important to restrict who has access to doing updates in this screen and creating new records and making sure that they have the correct understandings. So Kayla, I don't see any questions showing up in the panel. Oh, hang on, one just did. Let me see. Oh, you mentioned being able to enter more than one manufacturer's part number. Are you able to demonstrate that? Yeah, let me see if I can. I'm going to go into the purchasing tab here. Okay, so there's our languages, but sorry, give me 1 second here. I think I've been outside of B1 just long enough to now forget where I said that. Oh, here we go. So you need to right click, and there are some hidden things in here. So these are some shortcut reports, but this is what we're looking for. So the business partner catalog number. So this will invoke a pop-up window where now you can create the specific business partner links. So here you would assign it to that business partner. So for example, I could say MaxiTech, and then in here I would indicate that I want they refer to QA002 as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I can just make my way down the list here. So if I do order this from different suppliers, you would set that up there. In the case of actually creating your purchase order, so once again, I haven't done this in a while, but we're going to be doing an item type one. I believe in our form settings here, you then have the ability to invoke that field. So now on your purchase order, if you are setting up business partner catalog numbers, you're going to want to add that field. And so now, depending on what supplier you've put in, you should be able to either search or invoke the business partner catalog number on that PO. And you might also need to do an update to the actual printed form if you want that catalog number to show on the PO if you are physically printing and emailing the PO out to the client or to your supplier. So great, thank you for that question.
Great, thanks, Alex. Yeah, so session, whether it be Business One or by Design for our Q&A cafes, we record them each time. So I will be sending them out with the auto email that comes out from the GoToWebinar tool to all of you that participated today, and as well as the people that missed out. We also have our YouTube channel now. We have our training series playlist on our YouTube channel for VistaView. That's all B1 and by Design. And then I went in and kind of separated them out. So then you can see only by Design and only Business One training playlist. And all of those training videos are from either Q&As now, Q&As in the past, and recordings, all that stuff. So hopefully you can see something that will help you in the future. Our next one is June 11th. So Thursday, June 11th, Business One General Ledger Determinations. So be sure to register for that. You'll get information to register for that in your auto email that goes out. Or you can also go to our website, vistaviewsolutions.com, and go to our resources page, scroll all the way down, and then that's where our upcoming webinars for Q&A cafes. So that's it. That's all for us today, and I'll end it off here. And have a great rest of your day and a great weekend.